Midnight. Midnight. Did I mention it was midnight? In the Nashville, Tennessee airport, sitting at a Southwest gate. I'd just woken from a cat nap. Then I looked at my watch and then glanced at the arrival and departure board. The good news was that it said my plane was on its way, and that meant that I'd have the opportunity to actually see my son graduate in the morning with a master's degree. The bad news was that this plane was 4 hours delayed. You could feel the collective tension in the entire room. It was as if everybody was on pins and needles. We also knew, or at least I knew, that after we got on board this flight, that then there would be another flight to Columbus for an hour, and after that would be another hour drive to my son's home. I just sunk in my chair, just thinking about, oh man, I hate getting no sleep. Sleep and I have such a poor relationship to begin with, but on a night like this, we have no relationship at all. Well, suddenly, in the midst of this funk and tension, a voice came over the loudspeaker system saying, "Hello everyone, my name is Karen. I'm going to be your gate agent tonight, and I'm going to take care of you. Your plane is in the air. You are going to make it to Columbus. We know it's much later than any one of you would really like, but you are going to reach your destination." There was the biggest massive group exhale you've ever experienced in your life. In my own mind, I thought, hooray for Karen. Hooray for the good news. Hooray that the board is actually telling the truth. Now maybe I can get a little bit of sleep before I board this plane. But then suddenly the voice of Karen came back over the loudspeaker system saying, well, since we have some time, why don't we have a little bit of fun? I'm thinking, fun? It's midnight. Well, I have 20 pieces of paper here up at my counter, and for the first 20 people that come up here and fly paper airplanes, the 4 that go the furthest will each get $25 Southwest drink cards. 25 people or 20 people get out of their chairs, walk over to the counter, 20 planes are flown, 4 gift certificates are given out, and 20 people sit down. And I thought, well, good, that's over. But then the voice of Karen comes back over the loudspeaker system saying, that was great, everybody. Now I've got 25 pieces of bazooka bubble gum. For the 5 biggest bubbles that are blown, $50 Southwest drink cards. This time 25 people leap out of their chairs, run to the counter, 24 bubbles are blown, and there are high fives all over the place, and smiles replace frowns. Now, you never would have known, if you hadn't have been there, that engineers can actually construct planes in less than 5 minutes that look like rockets or jets, but an engineer from NASA and from Boeing were on the flight. And who would have thought that an 80-year-old grandma would have blown the biggest bubble? But you've got to hand it to the Canadians. Before the plane was even built, they made sure their flag was on that piece of paper, for crying out loud. I made it home, or I made it to my son's home that night. So relieved that I knew I'd be able to see him graduate in the morning. But as my head hit the pillow, as a leadership author, practice coach, and patient service expert, I began to ask myself this question: what did I just observe tonight? How did a frontline employee take a patently bad situation and transform it into something that was actually kind of positive. She took all the negative energy out of that room and turned it to calm. How did she take something that frankly was a fail and flip it to something that was fabulous? Well, I realized she did it through 4 steps. 4 steps that I now teach to all the practices that I work with, and they can be transferred in any type of business situation. Because we know that humanity happens in business. As hard as we try, mistakes, mishaps, emergencies occur. The question is, what are we going to do when they happen? Are we going to run from them? Are we going to run to them? Karen ran to them through these 4 steps. Number 1, she was fully aware of what was going on. Then she acknowledged this. She also showed appreciation, and she anticipated these type of events. So let's take a moment, dive into these principles a little bit more, and see how they may apply to your dental practice. First, awareness. Karen knew. She knew that there was tension, but she didn't stop there. She acknowledged it by owning it, building trust, and by assuring us that everything was going to be okay. And then she showed appreciation. Just through the bubble gum, just through the paper airplanes, but also through the drink cards. A team of mine actually had an opportunity to practice these 4 steps just a couple of months ago when a doctor actually in his chair had, for the first time in the patient's life, she had a seizure. Within a minute, the entire team knew that there was a medical emergency taking place. And then, within a minute, they acknowledged to every patient, both in the reception area and in the chairs, that there were going to be EMTs showing up, the schedule was going to be disrupted. If they chose to, they could stay and get their work done, or they could come back at another time and they'd be happy to give them 20% off just for their patients. How do you think that team felt at the end of the day when they knew that they had handled a medical emergency with grace, poise, and proactivity? They were empowered, so proud of the fact they'd handled something really rough and executed it flawlessly. So think about it in your own practice. You see, how can you follow Karen's 4th rule? And this was they anticipated. Southwest Airlines didn't leave this up to chance. The bubble gum just didn't show up magically. Maybe the paper was in the printer, but for crying out loud, the bubble gum was there. It was a prop. Savvy business owners know you can't leave these things up to chance. Mistakes and mishaps will happen in any practice. The question is, what are you going to do with them? Are you going to run to them or run from them? Will you turn them from a fail to fabulous? Well, I have a postcard here to help you have a discussion in your practice where you can actually plan around maybe the top 5 situations that could take place. It could be a clinical error. It could be somebody who waits in the lobby too long. It could be a medical emergency. Whatever it is, plan, execute, and put this in your break room so that you're ready. I've long since forgotten the 2 hours of sleep that I had that night. I'll never forget what it was like to see my son walk across that stage. But I'll also never forget what Karen did that night and how she took a patently bad situation and transformed it. But I'll also never forget what Karen said at the end. When it was all said and done, all the bubble gum was blown and all the planes were flown. In the immortal words of Karen, I love my airline. You see, savvy business owners know that loyalty isn't just something they try to create with their teams or their patients, but also with their teams. When a team knows that they know how to handle these situations, they are empowered, they're loyal, and they're prepared. So remember these 4 points, and the next time you encounter this, don't run from it. Run to it and make it a big business builder. Thank you.